Hello, I'm Paul Ralph, and by way of introduction, I describe myself as an adventurer, part explorer, and full-time storyteller. I'm a person of mature years, despite my very youthful looks, of course, aging well for over 60. My short, spiky hair keeps its dark black colour with a hint of grey, and glasses have become a permanent fixture. My boyhood passion for exploring places remains with me. Not always easy as a power chair user. I love old places, countryside spaces, and all things technical. My wheelchair adventures take me the length and breadth of the country, and indeed beyond, as I photograph my exploits and often write about them. When I'm not doing that, I can be found talking about access and inclusion, tourism and technology. I guess you could call these my four passions. No surprise really, as they're all intrinsically linked to my day-to-day life. When asked what I think when I hear people discussing accessible and inclusive design, I'm instantly drawn to the notion of, actually, do you know what? I'm getting a little tired when people interchange the two terms. For me, it offers something of a red flag. It tells me people simply don't understand the lived experience. In my world, accessible stuff for me is very much the practical, the tangible, the things that people do, such as ramps, lifts, induction loops, large print interpretation, audio description, relaxed performances, lowered counters, braille labelling, spaces for assistance dogs, good lighting and clear signage, and so I could go on. Inclusion is a very different thing. It's not so much what I think or what I use or what I need, but very much how I feel. Inclusion for me is how you feel when visiting somewhere, how you interact with the space, what the welcome was like, whether you get to see everything or simply just snippets, and most importantly, whether I get to take home my own story to tell my pals. Let's just stop a minute and think of this on a practical level. You could build an attraction and you could put in every conceivable gadget, contraption, whatever you like, to enhance the accessibility, and on paper it may well describe itself as a 5-star experience for disabled people. However, if your staff don't know where the accessible loo is, or they've never used the platform lift, or how to turn on the audio description or the captions in a video, or they simply don't feel comfortable stepping forward to welcome disabled visitors, then inclusion fails. I'm asking you today to be like Les. Be like Les, who was the tour guide I met, who stepped forward to welcome everyone and simply made my day by asking me, partway into the tour, if everything was working for me. I knew that he valued my visit. I knew that he valued my visit, and I knew how important this is. And this was, as I tell conferences about what Les did, simply because it doesn't happen in the real world. It didn't cost money, it didn't need equipment, but it's left a legacy in my box of stories that lives on. As I explain, that one simple gesture only happens to me once or twice a year. When posed the question, what do most designers, building experiences and attractions miss out? I guess you're probably going to think I'll roll out a list of things that people and places might overlook when planning for accessibility. For me, that rather feels like falling into the territory of the checklist, tick, 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 rather than understanding the impact of what you're creating, what you do, what you offer. I want to ask, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask you to think differently for a moment about welcoming disabled people. What you may be missing is the scale of the market that you are overlooking. Often attractions, places and spaces see disability and disability equality as being something of a compliance exercise, just like your fire precautions, your health and safety, and so many of the other constraints you operate under. Take a leap of faith and let's spin this metaphoric coin for just one moment. What if you consider accessibility and inclusion as being an opportunity to attract a new market to your business? Now, I appreciate that much of what we're talking about is very much on a global scale, but for the purpose of this, bear with me and reflect a moment on the UK position as it is today. Attractions, tourism and hospitality in the United Kingdom too often overlook the fact that there are 14 million plus disabled people in the UK. Simply put, here in Scotland, where I'm speaking from today, that maps out to be 1 in 5 of our population. Okay, I get it, it's an interesting viewpoint, but hey ho, so what? Here's what. Did you know disabled visitors visit for longer, spend more money, bring more people with them, tell more people about their visit, and return more often than the average visitor? So you see, you can start to wake up to the new opportunities that accessible and inclusive tourism can offer you. Apologies to my friends and allies who already know this and feature among the few that do well in this market segment. For those still uncertain, it's time to pause a while and consider how you tell your financial director that disabled people in the United Kingdom have a collective spending power of £274 billion. In England, accessible tourism is currently attracting an annual spend of £9 billion, and in Scotland, about £1.4 billion. So maybe this is something you don't want to miss out on. When you reach a point that you can turn up to attractions, regardless of impairment, disability or condition, and for a brief moment in life, you forget that and you enjoy the simple pleasures like everyone else, you know that is an inclusive and accessible setting. Your collective work can help achieve this. If I and many other disabled people have to revert to satisfying a hidden hierarchy of needs before I can even consider an ice cream or buying a ticket or getting in, riding on something, exploring something, touching something, smelling something, or simply being in one of your fabulous spaces, then there is much work to be done. Let me share an insight into the hidden hierarchy of needs. It's a hierarchy shared with many other disabled people who will tell you the same. Before I can contemplate the enjoyment of your fabulous places, I need to know if you have an accessible parking area or if you have accessible public transport. My wheels, as magic as they are, simply don't levitate just yet, so I need to know if you have level access. And I need to know if this applies to everywhere or just simply somewhere. My mind focuses on accessible toilets when I arrive, as when you need one, you really need one. With little or no time to work out if there is one, where it is, and if you can actually get in the door. These are the first of my 3 things in my hierarchy of needs. If you can tell me about these on your website, and when I arrive, I will love you forever. It simply doesn't happen. Yes, this is critical information for me and many others. It's not optional, it's not nice to know. It's what helps me decide to visit you, and perhaps not visit your inaccessible neighbours. If you can get this right, I relax and finally get around to considering, actually, you know what flavour of ice cream shall I get? Shall I visit the exhibition, or am I going to pop in the shop? Maybe both. Wonder what I can post on social media. Wonder how I'm going to tell my friends about this amazing place. And if you're amazing, I might even write a blog or post a review. I'm often asked for a takeaway. I don't mean a curry, I mean a piece of information that helps places and spaces do amazing things. And I want to leave you a takeaway today. You and I know that societies, governments, authorities are very keen on talking about equality and access for everyone. I don't disagree with that, not one bit. But I do live in the real world. The person or the business that says, we are fully accessible, will be the person or business that doesn't get my business. And that's simply because fully accessible is purely a concept that is not achievable. I work a lot with my colleague and friend Ian, who is blind, and together we travel the world. He absolutely loves tactile surfaces, and I hate tactile surfaces because of the vibrations they create. He hates touch screens, and I love them for the ease of use with my wobbly fingers. We both love ice cream, but not in places that describe themselves as fully accessible. So my free gift today is simply this. Tell people what you have, tell people what you can do, and tell people what isn't possible, and we, disabled people, will respect you and support you. Tell disabled people you are fully accessible, and we will be walking the other way. For me, every time it comes back to information. Information is key. Build it and they will come is a great way of thinking. But what you may not realise is that the default position for many disabled people across the globe is to exercise caution when planning to visit places and spaces. I'll invite you to reflect on 3 questions. What do you tell disabled people on your website? What welcome do you offer everyone? And what story do you leave for each of your visitors? Even in 2023, places and spaces don't quite get this right sometimes. I wanted to visit a famous Scottish island to explore some distilleries. I couldn't visit. I failed to find information about wheelchair accessible accommodation. On another adventure, I booked a hotel. I arrived. I had phoned and talked about the accessible room and wheelchair access. When I rocked up and wheeled into the reception team seemed a little standoffish, reluctant to engage. I did find out why when I forced them to talk to me, the customer, the bill payer, and not my personal assistant. They had let the accessible room I had booked, I had telephoned about, to a non-disabled customer. I recently visited a wonderfully historic castle site, somewhat ruinous, but well kept and beautiful gardens, fantastic views, and one or two remaining fragments of the buildings. My story to take away from that visit, and what I was going to tell my pals in the evening when we met again at our hotel, went something like this. Oh, I was taken to the entrance gateway and I sat in the arched entrance. I did get to struggle with a picture book, which was difficult to hold. Pictures, no descriptions, and it required me to have an intimate knowledge of compass directions to orientate the pages where the arrows were pointing on the page. Not my cup of tea. I gave up. So, I'm sure we can all do better than these brief snippets of real life for disabled people in 2023. And so, I lay down this challenge before you today. Information. 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 Build it. Build it and they will come. Tell disabled people about it and they will visit too. Thank you.